The episode began with the usual buzz of anticipation. Stephen Colbert settling into his role as the sharp-witted host, ready to unpack the mind of his latest guest, Elon Musk. The topic was SpaceX Musk's ambitious venture that had long captivated the unravel world with promises of Martian colonies and a future beyond Earth. Colbert opened with a casual jab poking at the feasibility of Musk's timelines, his tone playful but EDG with skepticism. Musk, perched confidently in the guest chair, responded with his trademark swagger brushing off the dig as if it were beneath him. The audience chuckled, sensing the familiar rhythm of a late-night sparring match. But beneath the surface, something simmered a tension that hadn't yet breached the polite veneer. Colbert leaned into the SpaceX narrative, pressing Musk on the real cost of his cosmic dreams. Not the dollars, but the human toll the workers who'd spoken out about grueling conditions at SpaceX facilities. The lawsuits piling up like discarded rocket parts, wasn't it? Reckless Colbert suggested to chase stars while stepping over people on the ground. Musk's smile tightened his eyes, narrowing as he deflected, insisting his vision justified the sacrifices. The audience shifted, sensing the shift from banter to something sharp. What did Musk really believe, viewers might wonder? Was this a man driven by genius or blinded by ego? Could Colbert crack that polished exterior, or would Musk turn the tables? The host didn't relent, pivoting to Musk's grand claims about colonizing Mars. He painted a picture of a barren planet, questioning whether humanity's salvation lay in abandoning Earth rather than fixing it. Musk fired back, his voice steady but laced with irritation, arguing that staying put was the real cowardice. The exchange grew pointed, each man digging in the audience caught between laughter and unease. Why did Musk seem so defensive, so quick to dismiss the here and now? Was Colbert pushing too hard, or not hard enough? The air thickened as Musk leaned forward, his posture signaling he wasn't here to be dissected. Colbert, sensing the resistance, doubled down his next question, cutting deeper, accusing SpaceX of prioritizing headlines over accountability. Musk's demeanor shifted, his charm giving way to something colder. He interrupted his words, sharp and dismissive, brushing off Colbert's critique as the whining of someone too small-minded to grasp the future. The audience gasped, the mood souring as the insult landed. Colbert's face flickered with surprise, then resolved, refusing to let the moment slip. He pressed again, this time with a personal edge, suggesting Musk's obsession with SpaceX revealed a man more in love with power than progress. What kind of leader shrugs off criticism with such disdain? Was Musk unraveling, or just warming up? The stage was set, the confrontation brewing, and the night was far from over. The atmosphere on the set had turned electric. The initial skirmish over SpaceX, now a full-on battleground. Colbert, undeterred by Musk's biting dismissal, leaned into the fray, his voice steady, but his eyes flashing with a mix of indignation and determination. He circled back to the workers, the ones Musk had waved off as mere collateral in his galactic pursuit. He painted a vivid picture of exhaustion of families left behind, while SpaceX chased its next launch window, pressing Musk to explain why those lives didn't weigh as heavily as his Martian fantasies. The audience leaned in, their earlier amusement replaced by a restless curiosity, sensing the host wasn't just fishing for laughs anymore. Musk, though, wasn't fazed, or at least he didn't show it. He sat back, arms crossed, his expression a mask of cool arrogance. He countered with a lecture, his tone dripping with condescension, implying that Colbert couldn't possibly understand the stakes of humanity's survival. The host's questions, he suggested, were the petty gripes of someone stuck in the mud while he built highways to the stars. The audience bristled a few murmurs, rippling through the crowd, but Musk didn't stop. He took it further, jabbing at Colbert's career, calling him a clown who'd never risked anything real. The insult landed like a slap, raw and unfiltered, stripping away any pretext sense of civility. Colbert's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. He fired back, turning Musk's words into a weapon, questioning whether a man so quick to belittle others could truly lead humanity anywhere worth going. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others stunned as the exchange grew personal. Musk's composure slipped his voice, rising as he accused Colbert of pandering to the room, of playing the hero for cheap applause. The host didn't back down, instead, digging into SpaceX's recent failures, the exploded rockets and delayed promises, asking if Musk's ego was the real fuel behind his empire. The air crackled with hostility, each man's words a dagger aimed at the other's core. The breaking point came fast. Musk, visibly agitated, cut Colbert off mid-sentence, his patience shredded. He unleashed a tirade, his voice booming with a mix of fury and disdain, claiming the host was too insignificant to judge him, a nobody. Grasping at relevance, the audience fell silent, the weight of the outburst hanging heavy. Colbert sat still for a moment, letting the words echo his silence louder than any retort. Then, with a steely calm, he shifted the frame, asking the crowd if this was the man they trust to save the species. The question wasn't for Musk, but for everyone watching, a challenge to see the guest for what he'd revealed. The confrontation had crossed a line, and the night was spiraling toward something unforgettable. The silence after Musk's outburst stretched taut, a wire. Ready to snap, Colbert, still composed, let it linger, his gaze fixed on the guest, as if peeling back the layers of bravado. The audience held its breath, caught in the gravity of the moment. The once light-hearted show, now a crucible of exposed nerves. Musk, perhaps sensing the shift, straightened his features, hardening into a smirk that dared Colbert to keep pushing. The host obliged, pivoting from SpaceX's rocky track record to a broader accusation, suggesting Musk's relentless ambition was less about saving humanity and more about cementing his own legend. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others tensing as the words hit their mark. Musk didn't hesitate. He leaned forward, his voice low but venomous, turning the attack personal. He mocked Colbert's, moralizing, implying the host was a hypocrite who'd never faced real pressure, a man who hid behind a desk. While others built the future, the dig was sharp, but he didn't stop there. He brought up Colbert's past, twisting a half-forgotten story from the host's early career into a humiliating jab, claiming it proved Colbert had always been a sellout chasing approval. The audience gasped, the cruelty of it sinking in, and for a fleeting second, Colbert's mask slipped, a flicker of hurt crossing his face before he buried it. The host recovered fast, his voice steady as he countered, pointing out that Musk's wealth didn't buy him the right to trample others. He circled back to SpaceX, questioning whether the employees Musk dismissed so easily were just pawns in his game, disposable as long as the rockets flew. The crowd rallied, their applause swelling, but Musk wasn't done. He erupted, his tone savage, accusing Colbert of jealousy, of being a small man, obsessed with tearing down giants. Then came the blow that stopped the room cold. He sneered that Colbert's whole career was a fluke, a lucky break for a talentless hack who'd never matter. The words hung heavy, a deliberate wound, and the audience recoiled, some booing, others stunned into silence. Colbert sat back, absorbing the hit, his expression unreadable. For a moment, it seemed Musk had won his brutal takedown, leaving the host exposed. But then Colbert shifted his silence, turning into a quiet strength. He looked out at the crowd, then back at Musk and asked with chilling calm if this was the real face of the genius they'd all been sold. The question wasn't loud, but it cut deeper than any shout stripping Musk's outburst. Bear the guest's smirk faltered, his control slipping. As the room turned against him, the energy tilting in a way he hadn't expected, the confrontation had reached its rawest edge, and the fallout was imminent. The air in the studio crackled with unease, Musk's vicious takedown still reverberating as Colbert's piercing question lingered. The guest's smirk had wavered a crack in his armor, and the audience sensed it, their murmurs growing into a restless hum. Colbert, seizing the shift, didn't raise his voice or lunge back with fury. Instead, he leaned, in his tone measured but laced with a quiet fire, dismantling Musk's attack piece by piece. He turned the personal insults into a mirror, suggesting that a man who needed to crush others to feel tall might not be the savior he claimed. The crowd erupted, their cheers a wave of support, and Musk's eyes darkened, his grip on the narrative slipping. Musk tried to reclaim control, his voice rising as he doubled down, defending SpaceX as a noble cause that Colbert was too shallow to comprehend. He sneered again, calling the host a parasite, feeding off real innovators, but the jab lacked its earlier venom, sounding more desperate than cutting. The audience wasn't buying it anymore, their boos cutting through his words, and Colbert pounced. He brought up the promises Musk had made, the deadlines missed, the workers left in the lurch, painting a picture of a leader who demanded loyalty but gave none in return. Each point landed like a hammer, and Musk's posture stiffened, his cool facade crumbling under the weight. The guest snapped, his temper flaring as he interrupted his words, a jumbled rush of indignation and arrogance. He accused Colbert of twisting the truth, of being a puppet for a jealous mob. But the rant only dug him deeper. The host didn't flinch, letting Musk unravel, his calm a stark contrast to the guest's spiraling fury. Then, with surgical precision, Colbert delivered the killing blow, asking if Musk's tantrum was what humanity could expect from its supposed trailblazer. The crowd roared a tidal wave of approval, and Musk's face twisted, caught between rage and disbelief, realizing too late he'd lost the room. Colbert didn't gloat. He straightened, his gaze steady, and told Musk the show was done with him, his voice firm but not cruel. The audience exploded, their applause deafening as security appeared, a subtle but unmistakable signal. Musk stood his exit, a mix of defiance and defeat, hurling a final bit remark over his shoulder. But it was drowned out by the crowd's fervor. Colbert watched him go, then turned to the audience, his composure intact. A man who'd faced the storm and emerged unbroken. The night ended with the host reclaiming his space, the triumph clear, the confrontation resolved in a blaze of raw, unyielding resolve. Musk's departure left a void on the stage, his retreating figure swallowed by the shadows as the audience's cheers swelled to a crescendo. Colbert stood alone, the weight of the confrontation still etched in the lines of his face, but there was no trace of defeat. He turned to the crowd, his eyes catching theirs, and in that moment the room belonged to him. The boos that had chased Musk morphed into a roar of solidarity, a collective exhale. After the storm, the host didn't rush to fill the silence, letting the energy settle his presence, a quiet anchor amid the chaos that had unfolded. He began to speak, his voice steady, reflecting on what they'd all just witnessed. He didn't linger on SpaceX's grand promises or Musk's venomous outburst, instead focusing on the cost of unchecked arrogance, the kind that dismisses the small to chase the infinite. The audience leaned in, hanging on his words, their earlier shock replaced by a fierce loyalty. He wove the night's clash into something larger, a reminder that power doesn't excuse cruelty, that vision without heart is just noise. It wasn't preachy, but raw, a gut punch that landed because it came from the man who'd taken the hits and kept standing. The crowd erupted again, their applause a thunderous wave, and Colbert let it wash over him, a flicker of gratitude breaking through his resolve. He didn't mock Musk's exit or revel in the guests' humiliation, though the temptation must have lingered. Instead, he shifted, thanking the audience for riding the night with him, for seeing through the bluster. To what mattered, it was a master stroke, turning a personal victory into a shared one, and the room felt it. Their cheers laced with a pride that went beyond the show. The tension that had gripped them dissolved, replaced by a cathartic release, a sense that justice, however fleeting, had prevailed as the segment closed. Colbert sat back, his posture relaxed but unbroken. The host, who'd faced a titan and sent him packing the audience, rose. Their ovation, a final stamp on the night, and he met it with a nod. A man who'd earned every second of it. The cameras lingered, capturing the triumph. But there was no need for more words. No dangling threads to tease. Musk was gone, his venom spent. And Colbert remained the vicar, not by force, but by resilience. The show ended on that note, a fierce, unyielding finish that left no doubt the stage was Kerr and the night was won.